Hello ladies and gentlemen, Matt the Editor here, and welcome to another edition of Doctor Who Series 12 Who Editor Reviews. Now last week, Doctor Who Series 12 gave us a really strong start. The story was well written with a wide range of great developed performances from our main characters, and a twist ending that none of us saw coming. So of course, part 2 had a lot to live up to. So what did I think? Well, you can't fool the show for not trying to do something traditional. Upon first viewing, I thought it was good, despite it having a few issues, but the more I thought about it when comparing it with part 1 to see how it all fits, part 2 just comes across as a complete mess. That's not to say I didn't like it. I mean, there are some stuff to like in this episode, so let's talk about that. Whether or not you enjoy this episode, you have to give props to the performances. They are clearly working really hard with what the script is giving them, and they do their best, especially Jodie Whittaker, whose performance in the scenes as the Doctor, whether it's with the supporting cast or just on her own, is really well done. The TARDIS scene are given some moments despite a few forced-in jokes or lines, and the production does show that there was a lot of effort being put into it. However, my main issue with this episode is similar to most of Chibnall's scripts in Series 11. The story has little focus in what it is trying to tell us. It has good story and visual elements inside, but those elements still need maybe a couple of rewrites to see if they all fit, or they just needed to be separate stories. So, let's talk about the good stuff first. Now, the one thing this episode got absolutely right was the scenes between the Doctor and the Master. So yes, those of you who don't know, we find out at the end of part 1 that the character O, played by Sacha Darwin, turns out to be the Master. Now, I didn't go into full detail in my previous video to avoid spoilers, so now if you don't mind, I would like to go back into that stuff to see how it all fits in with part 2. One of the things I wanted to mention in part 1 was that as much as I really enjoyed watching the character of O, there was a slight feeling in the back of my mind that there was something wrong with this character. I had a feeling whether he was a traitor, an enemy, or a spy. But when he was revealed to be the Master, I thought, hold on a second, how does this work? The Master was last seen regenerated into Missy, and Missy, well, died after being redeemed. So unless this is an incarnation between Sim and Gomez, that might make sense. But honestly, at the time, what kind of surprised me was how all that fan theories about Sacha Darwin being a suggestive actor to play the Master is now actually canon. That just seemed weird. But yeah, Sacha Darwin shines the most. This guy is full of enthusiastic energy whenever he is on screen. Whether it's him standing up to Barton and then banging his head on his own console when he discovers the Doctor has escaped. Next minute, he's arrived in 1834 dressed as the Greatest Showman with the shrinking device, the tissue compression eliminator, making the Doctor kneel to him and calling him the Master, which I'm guessing that Doctor was really not happy saying it. Then he hunts the Doctor down in 1943, and we see him dressed as a Nazi leading a patrol into the room where the female spy lives, and they shoot the floor to see if the Doctor was hiding in there. All of that was done with not a lot of dialogue. And every other scene from there was so good, like the Doctor using the 4 Knox rhythm. The Time Lord's contact from the classic series was finally being used in the revived series. And yes, the confrontation scene on the Eiffel Tower was pretty good, and it's a nice little reference to Logopolis, another Doctor and Master story. However, upon first viewing, all the way through, I've been asking myself, why did this have to be the Master? Couldn't those scenes have just been done with Barton, especially since the creatures are supposed to be gateways of sort? I don't know. Barton could have followed the Doctor across space and time. Not to say this scenes like the Eiffel Tower or the Kneel Before Me scene wasn't performed badly, it just seemed like the way he was written could have been portrayed by any other villain. But, once again, the ending changed all that. The Master revealing to the Doctor in the TARDIS via emergency programming made a whole lot of sense to me. Yep, it turns out the Master went back to Gallifrey and destroyed it all. This is an interesting take for the Master, having him discover the truth behind the Time Lord history and then causing havoc to everything out of grief and anger. I especially love how he explains to the Doctor about what happened to Gallifrey, and all the way through he looks beaten down, broken-hearted. Until he says the line, I could tell you more information, but where's the fun in that? I thought, oh, that's good. That was a Master moment right there. Sacha Darwin is clearly an actor of many ranges, and after watching him play as both the determined, mild-mannered director in Adventure in Space and Time, the adorable O, and the energetic, mentally disabled master, I do hope we get to see more of him in the future. He is so much fun to watch. I did mention in my previous review that I wanted a slightly mature Doctor, but not too overly mature. And boy, it does look like we are seeing this Doctor go to places I don't think we might have seen before in this series to come. I did like seeing the Doctor having to work with different companions. She did seem to work well with Ada and Khan, after going, well, fangirl on them. Her scenes with the Master are easily the highlights of the episode, whether it's her confronting him on the Eiffel Tower, her kneeling to the Master to stop him killing innocent lives, but the best Doctor moment, in my opinion, takes place right after the conflict, when the Doctor goes back to Gallifrey to find it all destroyed. At first I thought this seemed like a completely stupid idea when it comes to the show's continuity. I thought Gallifrey would still be stuck in the Pocket Universe, or the Time Log, or basically be impossible to get to. However, since Moffat broke his own rules with Hellbent, anything is possible. However, I am so glad Gallifrey is now dead and gone. However, I will admit it does make the events that happened in the anniversary special completely pointless. But at least it gave us the Doctor we had not seen for a while. The Doctor with a dark secret. The stuff that Eccleston, Tennant and Smith had in their run. We got those elements when she finally explains to her fam who she is and where she came from, but we can still see that she has a dark secret. This Doctor now has a goal to build around her run. Something I think she did not have in the previous series. Maybe from now on, this type of Doctor will be shown more in the series, and therefore getting rid of the overly done, childish or wacky dialogue. But of course, let's talk about the ending, because that's pretty much all everyone's been talking about in the last 2 episodes. Basically, the Master destroyed the Gallifreyans upon discovering the truths and lies that their founding fathers have told them, which I always thought was something the Time Lords would do, like with Rassilon or Omega or whatever happened in the Time War. But this does lead the Doctor going into a direction that I am curious to see. The Doctor having to work out what it is to be a Time Lord, kind of on the same lines of what it is to be human. What I'm a little worried about is how it looks like Chibnall is risking the laws of the Time Lord's history, as well as the entire 56 run of the entire show, by having the Doctor discover the possible origins of the Time Lords, which I don't mind, but I always saw stuff like that to be something that is not meant to be discovered. It does seem like the series arc of Series 2 could center around the Timeless Child, which was first mentioned in Series 11. And don't get me wrong, I, like everyone else, want to know what this Timeless Child means. However, I'm a little worried that it's going to be a little too obvious, like having it turn out to be the Doctor who was the one who created the Time Lords, which I really do hope they don't do that. But, again, I'm still a little curious with how this goes. Now, much like with Part 1, I need to judge this episode as a whole, rather than judge the last couple of minutes. And the overall episode itself is not at all perfect, but I can see some good stuff found in it. Particularly in the stuff with the 2 female characters, Ada Lovelace and Noor Khan. The production work is well done, and clearly a lot of work was being put into the sets, costumes, props, and aesthetics. Both are good settings to have a Doctor Who episode take place in, and both did lead to some good moments and some good characters. Unfortunately, in my opinion, there is way too much stuff happening in 1943 Paris. That the stuff in the 19th century England, or even the spy stuff in present day, is almost kind of irrelevant. Which is a real shame, because I thought this could have been the episode. The Doctor being hunted down by the Master through time and space, so she time jumps to different time zones to meet different technological intelligent people to start Barton and the Master's plans. Maybe include a Steve's Job cameo, which we do kind of get in the Master's TARDIS console. Yeah, I know there are other figures that were seen on the screen, but all I can think about was Steve Jobs. This does seem like a clever idea. But most of the time is spent in 1943 Paris, with characters who, when you really think about it, aren't really necessary to include, but could have a really interesting story in their own rights. Ada Lovelace, nee Gordon, who is apparently a historical figure whom the Doctor first meets in the Mind Forest, I think it was, she believes the prison is her mind, and the creatures are gateways. Okay, that's all well and good, but how does she know that? And how long has she been doing this? We then have the Doctor meet Charles Babbage, who is the guy who created the first computer. or at least a computing device. And Ada Lovelace was the first computer programmer who wrote the first algorithm, basically the possibilities of the computing device. Then they meet Noor Inayat Khan, the first female Special Operations Executive Officer to be landed behind enemy lines. Basically, the first female spy. This could work. I mean, having the first female spy and the first technological minds to work together to stop the Master's plan, it could work. But the power stuff clearly needed to be in a different story. I do like the setting, and I do like how the Doctor and Master face-off could work in this setting. But it clearly does not work in this two-parter as a whole. Yeah, and it's very clear that Chibnall did not read through both of his own scripts, or even considered rewriting them to make sure all these subplots fit in with the spy stuff, the Master's Return, 1943 Paris, the female historical figures, and the creature technology crisis. I mean, how could they all fit together? Both of these two characters, Lovelace and Codd, do sound like very interesting people to research, and I appreciate the show for doing that, especially since Series 11 gave us a Rosa Parks-focused episode. But that's the biggest problem. Both of these characters, are well performed by good actresses, and the production work centering around them is well done. Why are they even here? Okay, Khan I can see working since she is a female spy. There's even a behind-the-scenes video released after this episode aired talking about how amazing she was. So why is Ada Lovelace even here? She almost serves no purpose in the story. Honestly, you could have removed her from the entire episode and we would miss nothing. Don't get me wrong, I want to see more of her, and I wish we saw more of her. In fact, I want to learn more about these particular people, but much like this episode, there's no focus on what this story is trying to tell. Now, because this episode spent most of its time focusing on the Doctor and the Master in 1943, the stuff that Part 1 already set us up with the spy stuff gets sidelined, making the scenes look kind of rushed or look just like last-minute additions. We do get some good moments, like the team discussion concerning how well they actually know the Doctor and using her strategies to get out of their situations, or Graham using the laser shoe, which does lead to some enjoyable, corny, fun moments. But all of that is to the bare minimum, and the stuff they do add on doesn't get much resolution, any further development, or is just stuff we had already seen before in Doctor Who. Good example, Barton puts the gang on the most wanted list, causing them to go on the run by hacking onto their social medias and contacts. Now, as a spy-themed episode, this could have worked. However, as a Doctor Who episode, it's clearly taking elements from another master story, The Sound of Drums. We even get a scene of Yaz on the phone to her family to not listen to anything the media says. Now, this scene could have worked since we do get more of Yaz's family, but even then it felt forced and rushed. Looking back on both parts, I suddenly realised they did nothing with what happened to Yaz being stuck in this strange mind forest like I think it was. No, seriously, that was something I wanted to talk about in my previous review, but I thought maybe part 2 could fix that. One of the things I wanted to discuss about Yaz was the way she was captured by the creatures sent to the forest, and then she returned to reality, and she seems fine. I was expecting her to come out all confused or frightened, but no, she seemed fine. I was kind of expecting that the process would take time, so the Doctor or maybe Ryan and Graham have to save her before it's too late, but no, she's just fine. No disturbing emotions, no effects, not even a mention about it. So what was even the point? They even said in part 1 that the creatures take the humans, extract their DNA, and leave them as a shell. So why didn't they do that with Yaz? That could have not only raised the stakes, but also further developed how these characters work together as a whole. But that's not to say there were some good moments. I mean, I did kind of like how they escaped the plane crash, even though it was pretty obvious how they managed to do that and how the Doctor managed to save them. And yeah, Graham's laser shoe did lead to some really funny moments, but again, bare to the minimum. And speaking of the creatures, what exactly is the villain's plan? Okay, what is Barton's deal in this whole story? Looking back on these 2 episodes, I feel like I still don't know about this guy. Like, what was the point of him killing his own mum? This could have been a scene to give us an idea of where this man is coming from, but no, it's just there just so the show can keep spelling it out to the audience that he is the bad guy. Yes, Lenny Henry's acting is superb, and it does lead to some chilling and intimidating moments, but it still doesn't explain or even show to the audience what kind of character he's supposed to be. Okay, I understand he's supposed to be a type of Google organizer and I think a technology hacker. Reformat the whole of humanity to rebuild humanity. by erasing their DNA. If his plan was to just enable humans to store their own data inside of themselves, then why the need to be so evil about it? My friend Sam mentioned that he would have liked it if Barton would release an app that allows you unlimited cloud storage forever for free, but you have to sign away part of your DNA. It would have been a more subtle way of getting the message across. And the master plan doesn't make any sense. Don't get me wrong, this could have worked as a spy genre story. I mean, thinking about the idea of wiping away humans' DNA, like erasing your browser history on your computer, does sound terrifying when you think about it, but I would have preferred it without Lenny Henry getting on stage and spelling it out in explicit detail for God knows how many minutes. They could have worked that message in more subtly. Also, didn't we already get this plan with the Idiot's Lantern and the Bells of St. John? And then after the out-of-nowhere, long-expositioned climax, which you could have done by showing, not telling, I just remembered, Barton escaped. Probably still out there. We didn't even see him get arrested or anything, but maybe this got me thinking there might either be a scene missing somewhere, or maybe he might come back. I mean, the same way maybe the Master might come back. But I think the main issue with this episode is the editing. Now, for the most part, it's fine, but when it comes to scene transitions, it is lazily done. In part 1, I noticed that Ryan was immediately transported from London to Australia in one scene jump, and in this one, there is a massive time shift from when the Doctor left Ada Lovelace to her immediately in her normal outfit in the TARDIS. Now, I understand these episodes are 40 minutes long and kids would get bored watching it, but if you took out maybe if a few scenes in the first half of the episode would be able to leave enough time to expand on missing elements we would have got through this two-parter okay. Wow, that was a lot of stuff to get through. So, what's the conclusion? This episode has something going for it. The dynamic between the Doctor and the Master played brilliantly by Jodie and Sacha. But aside from that, I felt like it would have been better if it was placed in a better script. The villain's plans make no sense, some moments feel irrelevant to include, and the spy stuff which I enjoyed in part 1 is then sidelined along with multiple potential story ideas like having the companions work together without the Doctor, the female spy in 1943, or the algorithmist stories, which on their own could make good stories to maybe include the Doctor and Master stuff. But most of the entire story feels lazily written, slightly out of focus, which was something missing from Chibnall's writing in the previous series. But that's not to say I didn't like some of those stuff. The acting was pretty good, the amount of effort put into the costume sets and aesthetics was clearly needed, and yeah, that ending did get me interested in where this series is going, but I do worry that this could lead to some disappointing or lazy results. So now that I've seen both parts together, how do I mark them overall? Personally, I thought SpyFall Part 1 was a strong start, with great character and action moments, with a plot twist I didn't see coming, but it did have a few slight issues with its pacing in the first act. So in the end, I decided to give SpyFall Part 1 9 out of 10. While SpyFall Part 2 had a decent potential story to go through with the dynamic between the Doctor and the Master being its main point, as well as the ending setting up the series arc to look forward to, it did however sideline a few elements of its potential storytelling mixed with stuff we already seen before in the Whoniverse, making the stuff from the first half almost kind of lazily written. Not to say it was awful, it still has some good stuff, just could not live up to Part 1. This is still a good episode, and I highly recommend you go and see it. It just needed at least maybe 1 or 2 more rewrites. So I'm giving SpyFall Part 2 5 out of 10. So after my calculations, joining the scores together, SpyFall as a whole gets 7 out of 10. Be sure to leave a comment, like and share this video, and if you have seen both episodes, what did you think of them? If you'd like to see more of my videos, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.